Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today we are talking about Stand My Heroes, Piece of Truth, Piece 1. And yes, I will be saying Piece 1 instead of Episode 1 because that's what the show calls the episodes. So if anybody seems confused, you can let them know why. Now with that said, I do want to let you all know that if you would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Stand My Heroes episode video thing, then be sure to share this video around on the internet and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now with that said, there are 3 things that I want to talk about in regards to this week's premiere. I want to talk about Rei Izumi, the main character. I want to talk about the whole reverse harem aspect of the show, and I want to talk about the aesthetics and structure of the show. Let's go ahead and start with Rei herself. The main character is usually a good place to start when you're talking about the premiere of a freaking show. So, that said, I gotta say that the introduction to Rei, and in turn the show, was way more intense than I had assumed it was gonna be. I sat down, I had a warm cup of tea, I was like all snuggled up, ready for some otome game adaptation goodness, for just to appeal to my inner Fidanchi. I say inner Fidanchi as though it doesn't come out in all these videos that I'm a big time Fidanchi, but regardless, I was sat down, ready to enjoy myself, get nice and cozy, and no, the first thing I see is lights whirling, sirens blasting, and the MC like laying in the grass as she's looking at what appears to be a car that is driven into a carousel, and there is people injured, and I can only assume that the people were parents because the parents just they're just not addressed. That said, these characters are adults, so maybe her parents are fine. I don't know, but what I do know is that it was a very sudden way to jump into the show, and honestly, I kind of dig it. I like that the show was like, no, this is not gonna be like fun and games all the time, okay? This is a serious show. It's a pseudo cop drama. There's some stuff going on. We're gonna talk about some serious stuff. People are gonna get hurt. People might die. Drugs are involved. That's a thing, but it has nothing to do with the carousel, but maybe the guy driving was on drugs. You don't know. You better strap in, dude. It's gonna get intense. And I was like, yes, show. I agree. I will do just that. Thank you very much. And speaking of drugs, I gotta say, like right after the scene, we cut to this like boardroom meeting where they're talking about it's a group of police officers talking about their new drug team that they're gonna form to take down all these unsolved drug cases, and they called it STAND. What does STAND stand for? I don't know, but it sounds cool. That's why Araki named them Stands. It just sounds cool, dang it. And so I was like, okay, so this is a show about drugs. I was not expecting this, to quote the doctor, but yeah, it was quite the surprise. And as they're talking about this, we cut to the MC, who is in the shower, because of course, and then it cuts to her bookshelf, right? And all you see is these like mountains of books on drugs, like the different like the different kinds of drugs, how drugs affect the person, how drugs impact those around, like all these like different book titles that are all about drugs. And I was like, dang, that's too many books about drugs. That's too many. I refuse to believe she read that much books solely about the effects of drugs. She has quite the life. Now that said, to quote The Rock, it doesn't matter what I think because the MC has a strong band of a reverse harem at her beck and call, because this group in the boardroom meeting immediately say that she should be the one who scouts team members for Stand because that's her specialty. That's what she's good at. She's good at reading people, I suppose. And so they have full faith in her, even though the other cops are like, she seems like a rookie. That might not be, that's not exactly what we're looking for. In fact, that seems like a bad idea. But the reverse harem stands by her side, and if these husbandos are willing to stand by her side, then dang it, so am I. Rei Izumi actually already starting to win me over, and by spoilers, by the end of the episode, she really wins you over. But yeah, I was like, okay, if the husbandos back her up already, then I guess I'm on board. And I'm gonna get to that whole aspect of the fact that these characters already know each other because it ties into the whole reverse harem thing. But before I talk about the reverse harem, I want to talk about the MC, because here, what's refreshing is that the MC in one of these shows is not a blank slate. I'm looking at you, Amnesia. Oh, that's right. I didn't forget about you. Anyway, I appreciate that Izumi actually has a already established character arc that she will go down. She's got a hero's journey, so to speak, that she's already setting up for, right? Because we see that she's a little soft-spoken. She has a backbone, but it doesn't really shine through quite yet, and she's not quite as physically strong as her cohorts are. She's not quite as prepared for certain situations. She tends to jump the gun a lot. She's got a good heart, but the mind's not quite so sharp to deal with some of the situations that she deals with. For example, running into danger, probably not a great idea. That said, I like the established character arc that she has, because everybody refers to her as the princess, right? And that's how this whole team sees her. Maybe not her team back home, but certainly the Stand recruits. They're all like, oh, she's just some princess that we have to protect, blah. And I'll get to those guys later, but for now, it's cool to me that she already has this established arc of okay, I have to grow more confident so that I can help Stand, so that I can take down all these different drug cartels or whatever the hell. Pretty intense stuff for what is supposed to be an otome game adaptation. Like for a reverse harem show, that's a lot. But I appreciate that she immediately has this character arc, and I'm excited to see her go from zero to hero. Although she doesn't, what I also appreciate too is she's not hapless. She doesn't necessarily start at zero. She's already a decently strong enough character. She just has to build up that confidence in herself a little bit more, build up more of a sharp, wittier mind to deal with certain situations. Again, maybe don't run headlong against some dude with a knife when you are totally defenseless, but I appreciate the tenacity. See what I mean? She's not exactly starting at zero. She's not screaming and running away from everything. She actually can defend herself. But yeah, I don't know. I really like Rei. I'm down with Rei. I like Rei, she's cool. I also like the whole one's own justice conversation she has with, I believe the character's name is Aoyama. I really like Aoyama. I think he is probably the one that I ship her with the most. It just seems like the most reasonable of the characters that I've seen thus far, because there is a lot. And speaking of which, we can kind of segue slowly into the reverse harem by talking about Aoyama, because I do feel, like I said, he is the one that seems the most shippable, quote unquote. It seems like they have the best dynamic I've seen thus far. Now that said, we haven't really seen Rei chit-chat too much with the other members of her reverse harem. Now that doesn't just include the members of Stand, that also includes members of, I believe what was their name? The drugs something. It was DCD or something like that. Her team prior to Stand. And it gets a little complex because she has a team prior to Stand, then she has the members of Stand who are different, but also include occasional members from her team prior to Stand. It's a little complicated, and that's the one thing I can say is that the reverse harem is complicated. But again, I'll get to it in just a sec. I want to wrap up by saying Aoyama, I ship it. I ship those two. I like it. I like that he has full confidence in her. He's like her senpai, and he believes in her, and she looks to him for guidance, and I dig it. I can ship it totally. I see it. Now that said, let's go ahead and talk about the pre-established relationships, which I would normally consider to be a pro. It kind of drives me insane when we have to go through every single character, introduce them, and it's a slog, but then eventually you get to the good stuff of the episode. This show immediately is no, we're gonna dive right into the story. We will deal with the characters as they show up and as they are important to the plot. Cool, but in this specific case, I would have actually preferred if they went through each character and sort of chit-chatted with them, got a little bit more info on them, because all I know is that they're all pretty. That is the extent of my knowledge. They are all husbando tier immediately. I wouldn't say top tier husbandos, but I would say they are all husbando tier right off the pop, because dang, these character designs. Yep, if you liked Code Realize, and I will be talking about Code Realize before the end of this video, but if you like Code Realize's dudes, you're gonna like these dudes. I will also say too that Rei is also a cutie. It's not just the men, it's also the ladies. The lady in this case, Rei, is also quite the cutie herself. Definitely waifu material. But I'm gonna save more of the sort of aesthetics for when we actually get to talk about the aesthetics and structure of the show. This is supposed to be the part where I talk about the harem. You can tell I'm all over the place because I had a lot of feelings about this first episode, mostly positive. But that said, I did have an issue with the characters having pre-established relationships because I don't know enough about them. I don't really know anything about most of them, other than I think Yui might be my favorite. He's the pink-haired dude. I don't know what it is with me and pink-haired guys. It's just, for some reason, pink-haired characters, immediately I'm like, I like their hair. And they usually have a fun, kind of quirky personality. So that typically is like the character that I'm like, you're my favorite thus far. Maybe not the one not my most like shippable with me, not my husbando, but the one that I enjoy seeing on screen the most. So yeah, I would say Yui, the sort of sleepy scientist who wakes up halfway through and is sort of like quirky and fun. I like him the most thus far. But it's hard to say, because again, I don't really know enough about them, and everybody seems pleasant enough, except for the members of Stand. Now that said, I also like standoffish characters because I'm a bit of a masochist. So I do like the members of Stand, it's just they come off less pleasant than the other characters we meet in the beginning. These members of the harem, because let's be real, they're all part of the harem, these members are much more sort of like standoffish. They're not really big Rei fans right off the pop. At the very least, Sugano, which I believe is like the younger character, he seems to like Rei just fine. He doesn't really know much about her. Asagiri, the guy with the glasses who's like, oh, I don't know anything about her. He seems kind of douchey, but I'm assuming he'll grow on us. And Arakita, who at first I read as Arcada, and I laughed, and I was like, Tristan's in the show, but it's Arakita, alas. But Arakita is a big-time jerk. That said, I can also kind of see him getting together with Rei as well, since that typically is the way that these sort of shows go. You know, the whole like, oh, he's very standoffish at first, he doesn't like her, but eventually she breaks down the walls to his heart, and he opens up to her, and they have a meaningful relationship, and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. I don't know why I'm pretending like I don't like it. I'm here for it. It's just, you know what I mean? It's very like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. I do think he already off the top is sort of like, dang it, like I have to protect her because she's like, she just runs into danger. And I believe his name is Yu, the other character who shows up, the character with red hair. He's just like, oh, so you're already kind of interested in her, okay? And he's like, what? No. Like, it's right away like, I guess the only other real negative I have when it comes to the harem, beyond I just don't know enough about them to really have an opinion, is that maybe there's too many of them. I don't know if it's necessarily the same for the game, because I can definitely see how the structure of the game would go down, where you get to pick like which character you want to recruit to stand first. I can sort of see like how the game itself would be played, judging solely off this premiere, because I haven't played the game, I've only like seen the show. And I can sort of see how it would go down, but I don't know if you can necessarily romance every single husbando we see in the show, because if so, that's a lot. Like, this is a very large harem, and it was difficult for me to even remember like which character was which. So I was like, okay, this is why I wish we had pre-established relationships, because I'm confuzzled. That said, I'm going to safely assume that we will get to know them, and I want to get to know them because, again, they are really pretty, and I like them for the most part. But with that said, we're gonna go ahead and tackle the aesthetics and structure of the show now. And I gotta say, the main setup for the show, the drug control department and Stand and all that. Oh yeah, DCD, I was right. So the whole drug control department and Stand, the fact that we are going to be watching a reverse harem about a group of characters who are gonna try to take down like drug dealers, I guess, is pretty different from most reverse harems I have seen, and I really like that. I like that the show is still sort of light and fluffy, but deals with some pretty serious topics, and I think that's really interesting. I haven't really seen that before. The art style it's interesting, right? Because again, given the nature of the show, you would assume that maybe it would have a more sort of noir-ish sort of art style. It doesn't go there. It goes with the usual sort of very glossy sort of look. Everything's kind of like bright and light and floofy. And even like the frame itself, and I know this will bug some people, but the frame itself has this sort of light glow around it. So everything sort of looks almost like a picture book. It's very glossy, very bright. I don't want to say like super colorful, because it's not really colorful. It's just sort of bright, light, fluffy. And like I said, the frame itself has this sort of light glow around it that doesn't seem to go away throughout most of the episode. I like it because that's kind of my aesthetic. but I recognize that some people will be like, it's annoying. So if that bothers you, I totally respect it. I like this look. I think it actually does go well with the show because, again, even though we're dealing with like intense subject matter, the characters themselves are typically, at least from what we've seen, relatively light. And when the show needs to have a more dark moment, we've seen that the colors can get darker. We've seen that the show itself will kind of adjust its style for that scene. I'm already kind of down for it. As I said, everybody in the harem is super pretty as heck, including the MC. Everybody across the board is pretty, except for maybe the other older dudes that we see in the boardroom. They're just sort of like generic anime characters, or generic anime cop characters, rather. And the soundtrack itself, while it's not like the most amazing, oh my god, soundtrack I have ever heard, I do think each of the pieces perfectly fit the scene that they are meant to be placed in. I think the whole like piano track is very nice and relaxed and fits the sort of laid-back mood that a lot of the scenes are going for. And when it needs to get intense, it can do so. But I think the more laid-back tracks of this first episode are the ones that really shine when it comes to the soundtrack. There are some strange cuts here. I don't know how I feel necessarily about all the direction in the show, because there's certain cuts where it's like a character will be holding one character and then the next second they're just like far away from that character, and it just happens between jump cuts and you're like, wait, what? Or like one character will be in one spot and then they're immediately jump cutted to another spot and you're like, wait, what? That's weird. Like there's no real scenes, don't like, it doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time there's a flow to a scene, but sometimes there's this sudden jarring kind of jump cut, and it's not like it jumps ahead in time. It's like literally within the same second they're just in a totally different spot, and it's like a little bit like, whoa, what's going on? It's a little jarring, but that's the only real like aesthetic problem I have with the show, because unlike other shows of its ilk, this one has some pretty rad action. Like, this was a surprise for me, was that the action scenes are like smooth, like it's not janky looking. I thought for sure it would be like really sort of stiff animation, because in stuff like, say, Code Realize, which I am going to bring up again later, while they did have like decent enough action in Code Realized, it was also sort of stiff at times. Whereas here, and it could just be because it's the premiere and they really want to shine, but here the action scenes with Aoyama like stopping the dude with the knife was genuinely pretty dope looking, and it happened out of nowhere. You're like, whoa, like it catches you off guard, and then like there's like this dope action, like you can't see, but I'm moving my arms like I'm in a John Wick movie, and it was like really cool looking, and I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And then the attacker runs off and Ray runs after him, and like that's where you get the whole like she's immune to drugs thing, which was like, what? But I'm again kind of here for it. It was cool, like, and I was like, okay, I hope we see that more, like, just like these quick, like, sudden, like, whoa, and that's how action should feel in this show, where like when it like it will happen, but when it happens, it's sudden and surprising, but it also looks good, and I really appreciated that. And I've been bringing it up, so let's go ahead and talk about it. If you liked Code Realize, which I did, then you're likely going to enjoy this show as well, since there are some strong Code Realize vibes. It's an adaptation of an otome game. It has the exact same director, and it's from the exact same studio. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the staff was just carried over from Code Realize, because Code Realize is a good show. I know some people were like, about it. I liked it, but again, this is sort of my jam, so I respect that. If you don't, I do. And so I was all about this. It's not, each show kind of has its pros and cons. Each show has its strength that the other one doesn't, but I would say, judging solely off this first episode, I kind of like this a little bit more than Code Realize, which hurts me to say because Code Realize is way more my sort of like spooky autumn aesthetic. But this one, to me, just the whole crime element of it, this sort of like this cop drama mixed with a reverse harem, I'm kind of all about it. I really dug this first episode. With that said, everybody, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts and give this week's premiere a strong B tier. I think this belongs in the B tier. It's a good, solid premiere. There is stuff that I wish they would fix, and I hope that they do. But overall, I had a dang good time. On that note, everybody, that just about wraps everything up. But before we go, as always, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omner Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Verdun. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon, and hey, if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get for as little as $1 a month, and get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But on that note, everybody, that's going to be a video, so I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't going to tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.